What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. Well, the game keycard situation around the Switch 2 continues to evolve, now with a game that's set for its grand reveal here pretty soon, having some stuff leak out showing that they are using the 64GB cartridge, and the part that makes this so interesting, this would be the cheapest 64GB cartridge for the Switch 2 that we've seen so far, and that's brought up a lot of questions. We'll go over that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about a major shakeup at Sony and Bungie with a bit of a change there at the leadership position, and we also have a big reveal that's been lined up now through different rumors for a major Microsoft franchise, one that people have been calling for to finally make the move to Japan, and it looks like they're set to do that. So we'll go over that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below, and of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button or link in the description down below, and we're going to start today with The Division 2 Survivors, and we're about to talk about Sony and Bungie later on the show. This isn't necessarily what they wanted to see. What looks like another extraction type shooter. This we can see posted over on VGC. They also have the entire roadmap that was released by Ubisoft, where they say Survivors is described as a survival extraction experience and is set to be released next year. Now, along with their post-release calendar, their roadmap that you can see with this Survivors mode releasing in 2026, we also have the next big Division game that's been announced. However, that seems to be still a ways off right now. So this coming out next year, which is, going to be, I assume, within proximity of Marathon, does not bode well for Sony or Bungie, because this is a game that already has a built-in audience. The Division 2 is going to be 10 years old or something, which is crazy to think about. So you already have people who are well versed in the game, and then you just give them another mode like this that still plays directly into that Division universe. That's tough for Marathon, who obviously was developing towards what was a quieter sector with the extraction shooter years ago, and now has been building and building and building, and now it's getting kind of crowded for what I assume to be a player base that's not necessarily large enough to hold up all these games at once. Also, it looks like we will be getting that release date or release timing for Skate with its early access. We can see this over on their official account, where they say, "We're stoked to reveal the official Skate cover art. Come back on Tuesday, August 26th. We're giving you the early access release date. See you then." And my concern right now is that what they will say on August 26th is that it's available right now. Okay, so I don't know if they're going to do that. They also gave us the time for the premiere right below that in a response. They'll be live at noon Eastern on August 26th. I'm kind of hoping it's a month or two away, because this week we're about to talk about reviews and other things that have gone up. It's busy right now. Games are dropping all over the place. I'm trying to plan out what I'm even going to play over other releases. So you drop Skate, a game that I am very interested in, just to see how it turns out with what they've at least shot for here with this online multiplayer, free-to-play kind of experience that I'm kind of skeptical of. So you can kind of see where I'm a little conflicted there, as maybe it would be better if it came out later, although who knows what'll be coming out, say, in November, even October at this point. But I guess we'll find out here, actually pretty soon, what their plans are for the release, at least of early access.
Today's video is sponsored by Disorder. Enter a world where every battle counts. Disorder is the roguelite dungeon crawler that turns every defeat into progress. No challenge is wasted, and every attempt earns resources you can use for permanent upgrades, ensuring you return stronger and more prepared than ever before. The chaos deepens with the arrival of 2 brand new characters in a free DLC update: a ranged specialist who dominates the battlefield with firearms, and a tactical fighter who commands swarms of drones to dismantle enemies from every angle. Unlike tense one-on-one duels, Disorder is all about unleashing devastating hack-and-slash action. Customize and upgrade your favorite skills, chain abilities together, and carve your own path through endless waves of foes. Whether you're playing on PlayStation 5, Xbox Series X, S, or PC, which does include full support for Steam Deck, the fight is always within reach. Check out Disorder today by clicking the link in the description below and start turning every defeat into power. Thanks to Disorder for sponsoring today's video.
And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with this game keycard situation that, the conversation around this continues on. with a lot of backlash, at least from the online community. And not everyone. Some people are fine with it, or some people are just all digital anyway, so what do they care? But the collectors out there are very, very vocal around these game key cards because it's tied completely to a server, and all it is a little authentication key. You got to download the rest and store it on your system anyway, so it is kind of, okay, if I'm not necessarily planning to sell this because I'm collecting it, like what's the point in even buying a game key card? Well, it does seem like some publishers and companies are noticing some of the backlash, and in some cases, you could use it as marketing, which we've seen CD Projekt do, and actually kind of Sega as they're doing with Sonic Crossworlds just later on. Well, now we could be seeing another game come out on the 64GB cartridge, but maybe being the cheapest release yet. This we can see is posted. This is over on Nintendo Life, saying a new listing has recently popped up on the Canadian website Video Game Plus, and according to the description, the full game is on the cartridge. So they say that this title is being distributed with the help of PM Studios, but take a look. Yooka Replaylee. Now, VGP, they're pretty good about this, just trying to keep an eye out to see what games are all there on the cartridge, all there on the disc. Remember, we went that whole Grand Theft Auto situation where it was getting a reissue, and they were on top of it, checking to see if that was something that was maybe getting reissued to be on the cartridge. It wasn't, by the way, so there you go. But they do say Nintendo Switch 2 full game on cartridge. And I'm trying to figure out, are they going by the box art here? Because there's nothing that clearly labels it as a game key card. Because if so, that doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. It could be an early box art that's just out there as a placeholder, and then they'll come back and fix it later on because it's $50. So it's $70 in Canada, $50 in the US. The cheapest game key card we've seen, or game on a 64GB cartridge, that's not a game key card, up to this point, was Mortal Kombat, the Legacy Collection. That was $60, $10 more than the other versions. This, though, at $50, is price parity with the PS5 and the Xbox Series. That is somewhat surprising here. All right. And I'm very curious how they'd be pulling that off, because I don't know if I'm trying to think, you start to do the math and you're like, okay, a $16 cartridge is kind of the estimate right now. Then you go, okay, 30% for Nintendo and any of the other logistics around box art and you start to do the math. You're like, wow, there's really not much at all left over for them when you get down to it. Is this really the case? Well, right now we have to kind of wait a bit, because the Mix Fall Showcase, that's on August 29th here. Okay, so later this week, that apparently is when they will give the next major update, that being Playtonic Games, about Yooka Replaylee. So they've already told us that it's content complete, and they're going back and they're doing some bug fixes and polishing just to make sure that it's good to go. So hey, if that's the case, and because it's based on Yooka-Laylee, this is kind of like their, I don't know, I guess a remaster, remake. They're going back and they're trying to refine and do a big re-release for the game, essentially. There might not even be that many updates on day one anyway, so if they do get it on a cartridge, that would be awesome. Just to have it all there on the cart, not some weird game key card. But based on what we've seen so far, this doesn't make a lot of sense to go with the cartridge when it comes to just the cost side. It also still just being at $50. So a lot of questions here going into the 29th when they have their big reveal for this game. And I'll certainly be paying attention and keeping you guys up to date, because if we just see more and more of just full-on cartridges enter the scene on the Switch 2, maybe we can start to see the game key card just become less and less common. I don't think it'll ever go away, because, I mean, if a game comes out and it's 80 or 90 gigabytes, there's really not much you can do at that point. It's probably going on a game key card or it's a code in a box. But if a game comes out and it's 10 gigabytes or 20 gigabytes, anything under 64, you would like to just see it be on that full cartridge. So for now, we'll wait and see what Yooka Replaylee has in store later this week. Next up, let's talk about a big game coming out this week, one that I'm really looking forward to, and that's Metal Gear Solid Delta, as reviews did drop right at the end of last week on Friday, and I was keeping an eye on them to see where we'd land. I was thinking mid to high 80s, and it's right in that neighborhood. So if we take a look over on Metacritic, currently sitting at an 86 on the PlayStation 5. That was the most reviewed platform. The second reviewed platform was PC. That's sitting at an 85. So again, right in there, mid 80s. And for the most part, from the reviews that I was going through, it comes down to, hey, do you like Metal Gear Solid 3? Well, you're probably going to like Metal Gear Solid 3 Delta in the sense that it is, I mean, it's a one-to-one remake. It's not some weird situation. Some people were concerned when we first heard about this project that they would do a reimagining. No, this is very much kind of one-to-one. Now, there are still some things that they've done when it comes to quality of life improvements, and clearly you can see the visuals. They look significantly better just going up to Unreal Engine 5 and just stronger hardware. Although there have been some discussions around some of the artistic vision maybe being lost a bit going up to the more photorealistic style. But I still think, for the most part, it looks awesome in motion from a lot of the reviews. I was kind of careful with this one, all right? Because while I've played through Metal Gear Solid 3 on the PS2, and even in some of the most recent like collections and stuff they did, even going back to the old days of the Vita or the Xbox 360, I still don't... I want to see a lot of these scenes for the first time with this full remake. Just myself, right? So I checked out Digital Foundry because there was a lot of discussion around that too, since the performance seemed to take center stage around this game, which is kind of unfortunate because it's Metal Gear Solid Delta. It's a remake of arguably one of the greatest games ever made. But it was about Unreal Engine and how the frame rate was all over the place in many instances. I mean, they mostly focused around the first encampment that you come up to, and you can see the frame rate dipping even on the PS5 Pro at times below the base PS5. And apparently that's because the PS5 Pro targets a higher rendering resolution, and there's no way to change back and forth on that. It's just the PS5 Pro, you have like one mode and that's it. And unfortunately, because of that, it ends up tanking frame rate below what's a lower resolution PS5 in performance mode. And when I say frame rate all over the place, there are times where it's still within that VRR window, so it's going to be less noticeable, but there are also times where it drops from 60 to 30 in the matter of a couple of seconds, and that is jarring. So things exploding on screen, all of a sudden it's going to look like it goes into kind of slow motion there, and it's unfortunate. It definitely puts a damper on what should be a very exciting game, a remake like this, and it's still exciting. I'm still ready to go through it and check it out, but it is going to be that thing that's like, yep, there's the slowdown on my, well, now $750 PS5 Pro, so it'll just kind of tick at you here and there as you're playing through. But again, I'm excited to go through it. It's one of those situations though where it's like, okay, here comes Metal Gear Solid Delta. We should see Lost Soul Aside reviews coming up soon as well, and then we get into September and it's just one game after the other. Finding the time it's gonna be tough. Next up, let's talk about a major shakeup at Sony and Bungie. Shocking that there are changes happening at Bungie, right? After how successful things have gone for, okay, yeah, hasn't been great really since Sony acquired them. It's been tough for Sony with Bungie because, well, they're realizing that it probably wasn't the greatest acquisition with how much money Bungie seems to be burning constantly. Well, now we have a shakeup at the top, which probably, again, isn't that surprising. We can see this, though. This over on Eurogamer saying Bungie CEO Pete Parsons has stepped down from his position after over 2 decades at the studio. Quote, I am deeply proud of the worlds we've built together and the millions of players who call them home. And most of all, I am privileged by the opportunity to work alongside the incredible minds at Bungie. When I was asked to lead Bungie in 2015, my goal was to grow us into a studio capable of creating and sustaining iconic, generation-spanning entertainment. We've been through so much together. We launched a bold new chapter for Destiny, built an enviable, independent live ops organization capable of creating and publishing its own games, and joined the incredible family at Sony Interactive Entertainment. Parsons will be succeeded as CEO by Justin Truman, who spent 15 years at Bungie. Now, I was kind of laughing a little bit at that last part where he mentions the acquisition of Sony being one of the highlights. Okay, so yes, they joined the PlayStation Studios family, but they were supposed to be independent. Now they're really joining the PlayStation Studios family, as in they're losing their independence and they're kind of being cycled now into, they're being absorbed by Sony at this point. And while you can look at this and say, yeah, he's being ousted, honestly, you look at this and he might be saying, well, I've been here long enough after the acquisition to where my vesting period or whatever has matured and I can kind of just get paid out and leave. The golden parachute rule in effect here. So if you're him and all that's lined up for you right there, you just have to walk through the door, you probably take it and then go retire or go do whatever. I mean, I know he wasn't exactly well liked from what I saw by many ex-employees online and just kind of the internet at large. A lot of time, the classic car comments, like weird stuff, right? So again, if you're him and you just leave and get a bunch of money on the way out, and I mean, then you can kind of do whatever you want. Yeah, you probably take that. And I get why he's pointing out the Bungie to Sony acquisition. That probably would be a highlight of your career at that point, since you got Sony to pay out over $3 billion for Bungie, and, well, they're not looking back on that very fondly at this time, and that seems like you got a lot of money out of the deal, so there you go. Pete Parsons moving on. What does this mean for Bungie? Who really knows at this point, because the people running the show aren't at Bungie, they're at Sony. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Forza Horizon 6, because we had looked at there was a post that was deleted off of Instagram, and it seemed like some people from Forza team or whatever taking pictures of K-cars, and it kind of lined up with the idea of, oh, maybe Horizon 6 is going to Japan for its setting, but it wasn't necessarily concrete, because it could have been for DLC down the road or just different cars in general for Forza Horizon 6. Well, now we have some more solid info, we'll say. This from Windows Central, where Windows Central has seen official, widely circulated documents strongly suggesting that Forza Horizon 6 is actually being planned to be announced during 2025's Tokyo Game Show, an annual gaming-focused conference kicking off in Japan toward the end of September. So this would be the last week completely in September, and we should see Microsoft. Usually they go out there for Tokyo Game Show. They'll have some sort of presentation. This lines up as a big announcement then for Tokyo Game Show. In fact, Windows Central goes on to say this year's TGS, Tokyo Game Show, is set to be the largest in the event's history, and Xbox has already confirmed it'll be attending and announcing. With the Tokyo Game Show focused on the Japanese gaming market, choosing to reveal Forza Horizon 6 here, rather than at events like Gamescom, only makes sense if the game is in fact set in Japan. And this has the potential to be awesome. That's the thing. Forza Horizon, 5 is very good. I mean, it was up there as a discussion for a Game of the Year nom, and it didn't get it because it's a racing game, and that's just kind of how it goes. You can be the highest rated Game of the Year, but you're a racing game. So too bad. That really was the message that was kind of sent that year. It's reached a ton of people, tens of millions of people have played the game. And then you go back to Forza Horizon 4, quality release. So you kind of see their pedigree that they've built up over the last several releases. And they're going to Japan, which should be awesome just in general for car enthusiasts, the car culture there, especially if they go through the entire history. And this will kind of feel like it's really placing it next to Gran Turismo, which also very successful for Sony. Not quite as successful, even with the latest release that's done well, as Forza Horizon 5. So this is quite interesting. Forza Horizon 6 showing up here in about a month, according to this, with a big announcement that they'll be setting their sights on Japan for the setting of a game that, according to Nate over on his X account, he mentioned first half of 2026 seems to be the plan. Next year, though, keep in mind, we are going into the 25th anniversary of the Xbox brand overall. This would be a big announcement. Fable would be a big release. A new Halo game, even if it's a remake of the first one, would be a big release. Gears of War E-Day. You kind of go down the list and you're like, wow, Microsoft could have an incredible 2026, and we'll just see if all the pieces fall into place for that. But what a way to get things started if indeed Forza Horizon 6 goes to Japan and that lands in the first half of 2026, meaning we'd be less than a year away from all of that happening. That's good stuff. We'll keep an eye on this, see if they have any teasing that they want to do going into Tokyo Game Show when they make that announcement. And before we go to the comments of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, have you played Forza Horizon 5? Okay, 59% say no, but 41% say yes. That's actually quite high for just a racing game. I mean, look, I know racing games are... They fall into a certain genre, obviously, racing, and there are many people who are like, been there, done that. So for a game like this that has clear ties to more of an arcade style setting, I think that's pretty good at 41% of about 16,000 votes saying that they've played it, and a lot of people in the comments just being very excited at the mention of have you played Forza Horizon 5? It's like, yeah, it's a blast to play. So now think about that in Japan. I think it's going to be awesome. So I'm really looking forward to this announcement at Tokyo Game Show. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day, as you're seeing here. This is from Anthony, who says, I'll be honest, Valve would sell a lot more Steam machines, naming placeholder, if they included Half-Life 3 as a pack-in title. Seems like a no-brainer to me. I mean, yeah, if they include Half-Life 3 for the Valve Steam console or Steam box, yes, they would sell a bunch of those, especially if they did testing on it and set it up and optimized it specifically for that Steam box that they would sell. And it is the plug and play setup. It's easy. It's like a console, but then you have access to all the Steam games. free online, you're not paying a subscription for that. Yeah, they would do pretty well. I mean, Half-Life Alyx spiked Valve Index sales immediately by pairing them together. Now, they don't necessarily have to do that because Half-Life 3 is one of those games it's kind of like that Silksong territory. Everyone jokes about it, asks about it, or like Mother 3, you know, like those legendary titles that people don't think exist. Although it kind of sounds like Half-Life 3 not only exists, but it's getting closer and closer now to a reveal. And if that's the case, it comes with this console. It gets revealed next to it, so you kind of tie them together in your mind. Yeah, I think that would do well. I do still think the box has to be well priced, and Valve mentioned being price sensitive with the Steam Deck, which they got out there to their credit at $400 starting. If they can get this Steam box, we'll say, out with PS5 like, or even maybe slightly better than base PS5 performance at $500, especially now where that's the starting floor of the PS5, I think they'll have something there. I don't think it's going to explode to tens of millions of systems sold, but that doesn't necessarily seem to be Valve's strategy. They kind of just, honestly, because they're a private company, do this sort of for fun, but also to make some money. I mean, the Steam Deck hasn't gone on to sell 10, 20 million systems, but it seems to be enough for Valve to continue on. So I think a few million systems from Valve for this console box would also be enough. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed last week's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to check out some old school PC physical games that I picked up, which does include games like Final Fantasy VII and Mega Man X. I did a video about that over the weekend. I'll leave it right below. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.